on the money, and Catnip with a 46. So that might not be as close, but I still expect some quality gameplay from both these runners, and their file names might say something about Chapter 3, but we'll see when we get there, because the race has begun. So, for those who are new to Celeste, it can happen, of course. We have 3 main actions, 2 of which are already in the prologue, which are climbing and jumping. Both can be bound to just one or multiple buttons, and you'll see a little bit of optimization here, as bunny hopping is 2 frames per jump faster compared to your maximum walk speed. So we'll just bounce a bit over this bridge while it's collapsing, and we will start getting into the meat of things. I see a nice sync prologue here, very good. And now the main mechanic and the main thing this game revolves around has been made available to the players, which is the dash. And dashing, of course, in 8 directions. You can use this in all kinds of fun ways, which involve canceling your dash with a jump, called a dash jump, or a super jump for some. And you can also cancel a dash when you go diagonal down for it, and this is actually slightly faster, called a hyper dash. And you'll see a lot of hyper dash throughout these runs. You'll see tiny circles appear behind Madeline, the main character. And finally there's also a wall bounce, which is basically a dash jump, but instead of from a surface, you do it while being next to a wall and dashing up. So just combining all those dash, jump and wall bounce mechanics, you can just see the runners fly through this very first chapter here. See KVZ miss actually his dash up after the wave dash, which is just a hyper from the air. So diagonal down into the ground and then jump when you hit the ground. And if you time your jump correctly, if you're in the hyper or just be high enough in the air from a wave dash, you actually get your dash back mid-air, which is very useful for breaking a bunch of screens, such as the one Catnip will come into very shortly. For example, this screen, you can just do it with an extended hyper there. Clear the gap, very easy, very fast, very sometimes not as intended as you would like, but still very intended. And this very short first chapter is already done. Moving into chapter 2, here we have a brand new mechanic where there are dream blocks that will get activated very shortly. And these dream blocks are quite intuitive if you see them in action. You just dash through them and you keep going until you either exit the dream block or smash your face into the wall, with the latter not being the preferred way to exit a dream block, obviously. Gives you actually going to the left when you want it to go up. So some slight input issues already, but you see him using these dream blocks just fine, I would say. And they're very satisfying to use as well. And now in the battle line fight, or chase rather, where an evil clone of you will chase you, but it basically copies your movement on a 3-second delay. So as long as you're not backtracking as much, you will be just okay, but you have to be careful with your movement as to make not such obvious loops. But the chase overall is very nice to see. You'll see a coin and a door here where you have to backtrack, but you can just go right between them and open the door with those set coins. And the annoying part of these coins is usually that when completed they make a doorbell noise, and you can actually, you know, if you're not playing with headphones, you might make people think that there's someone at that door, but it's just a video game. So here KVZZ already done with the chase. The very last room can be quite punishing if you die at the end of it, but thankfully he didn't. He's already on a really good pace with this old site. And now in the awake section, where there's no dream blocks, nothing that you can die to, just a bunch of clean movement where you can basically relax after this second chapter. which is very nice pacing wise, where you have an exploration section, then a chase, and now a cooldown period, so you can move on with your adventure. But of course, we don't really slow down and cool off, we just breeze through instead. Although the breeze might give you some cooling, but that's opinion, of course. And now we're moving into the chapter their file names kind of mentioned, which is the Celestial Resort. Players don't really tend to like this chapter, since it's a bunch of, it's the first big difficulty spike in the game, and it's all cycle based. So these dust bunnies here, these dust creatures, depression clouds, mostly dust bunnies, are all on a cycle, and people don't really like waiting for cycles. So thankfully there's some cycle breaks we can do in this run. And there's also the difference between cycles, as they're entering a room has a half cycle difference between respawning in the same room. So runners, especially in rooms that they struggle in, will learn both cycles as a backup. You see KVZ doesn't really need this death cycle, as he will stay healthy and alive. Maybe get a corner boost here? He does. Corner boost where you basically grab a jump on the top 3 pixels of a corner, or top 2 pixels, where there's a 3-frame window where you can basically imagine that you pull yourself over that corner as a kind of a hop, skip, and a jump kind of thing. I'm not sure what that's called, but I hope you get what I mean. And that's my phone. That's apologies. Here in this huge mess section, where there's a branching paths kind of option you can pick, because there's 3 objects that have to be cleaned up: boxes, towels, and books. And you can pick whatever order you want for clearing these objects, but the way these runners would do it is based on the position they enter the huge mess room in, and after they clear a set amount of objects, because the place where Oshiro, the hotel manager, is always the same. So if you have done 2 objects, you always be at the top of the screen. So you want to be in a route that exits right there. As you can see, he will always be near this bottom area, so it's better to do boxes first in that regard. So the order will be boxes, books, and then towels. This also is the most efficient regarding getting an objective we will not get in this run, but will be obtained in other categories, which are crystal hearts, but we will not mention them, or I will not mention them today, since that's reserved for other categories or for people to discover themselves. Because it's, I recommend you play the game, of course. So, Catnip moving into the huge mess section as well, on her way to the first objects, which are the boxes. While KVZ is now in this towel section, which is, in my opinion, the hardest, both because it's the final chosen path, so there are no more books and boxes that might provide platforms for you to jump on. Plus, it can have some very tight cycle skips if you want to be optimal with your movement. So even for the more experienced runners, this is a hard section to clear. And it's always nice to see this huge mess not be a mess anymore. It's being clean and empty, as he now moves on to the elevator shaft. Also, some extra background. I think KVZ has secured a 2nd place finish in his group. I don't think there's much that can be done to change that position. And Catnip has a potential for 4th, but it's probably just gonna be the 5th place finisher in this group. And as a fact, yeah, Catnip is, unless she wins this race, which is not likely at all, as she's already a bit behind and their PBs are so far apart, she will be in 5th place and does not advance to the bracket stage, since top 4 of each group will advance. And KVZ is now in the Oshiro fight, where you basically, Badline made him mad, and now he is in a fury and tries to chase you while you try to escape off the roof of the resort. Luckily, he will announce his attack with these lightning bolts after he locks onto your Y position. So he can be quite easily dodged, and this is also on a set cycle, so you can know when to expect his attacks, but you still have to mix up these cycles with the regular Dust Bunny cycles, which can be quite tricky to navigate if you're not experienced with it. And especially this last room, a very long room, and taking deaths here is very punishing for your time. Because of course there's no checkpoints in this room, you respawn at the very beginning, so you definitely do not want to die, especially if you're already far into the room. But KVZ gets through scot-free with a very nice resort time, and he is looking already set for this race so far. And I do agree, Scattered and Lost is one of the best pieces in this soundtrack. And if you have not listened to this music, I recommend you do. Moving along, Chapter 4, new chapter, new mechanics. It will be a theme, so get ready. There is Wind, which will just be a kind of a pain and move you around. And then there's these green bubbles, which are basically a dash, but they give you your dash back. And something that not many people have mentioned yet in these runs is that you can actually press the dash button to launch the bubbles early, which saves around a second per bubble usage. Or now half a second sounds better. I think around half a second per bubble. So pressing dash to activate these bubbles saves a bunch of time and might not be noticed by some newer players. And there's also these arrow blocks that will move along the arrow and can be slightly steered, aka you can turn their direction into a diagonal one by standing on the button that is open, as you can see in this place. In the skip, here's the first auto-scroller skip of the run. There you go, very nice. Where having to follow these arrow blocks is somewhat considered as an auto-scroller, since of course the screen isn't scrolling, but you have to be on the block to do anything, so might as well have been an auto-scroller. But thankfully we can skip that with a very nice hyper dash plus wave, no, plus jump tap while on the floor, also called a bunny hop. And there's also another auto-scroller room coming up. And there is a way to skip it if you're a TAS. But I think we are dealing with mortals here, so we will not skip this room. And as you can see, it can be quite slow to do. Catnip now finishing up on Resort. 15 deaths is not much, but of course, depending on the runner, they might disagree with that. And KVZ taking a few deaths in this room already. And this wind room in particular can be quite annoying to navigate, since the wind is actually on a cycle. So you can actually use this wind. You can actually skip some wind cycles here with some clever movement, but it requires near perfect inputs. Well, not near perfect, but it requires no mistakes from the start of the room, which can be hard to do. And now into the final section of the Golden Ridge, Cliff Face, which is known for its harsh winds and its snowballs that come flying into your face. So with this wind, it's really hard to move, so we have to use a bunch of dash mechanics to be able to still move at our desired pace. So thank you Speed Tech for the ability to almost ignore the wind, making it look really weird for a new player. It's making it seem that we do not care about this wind at all. While to newer players, the wind will be very annoying, of course. Now final room, wind in your back, you go extremely fast, feels kind of satisfying. And we end up with a 3:28 golden reach time for KVZ. Catnip is doing pretty well as well. It's now in the first auto-scroller, so a minute or two behind already, but that doesn't mean that her pace is good. Because of course there's different standards with depending on your PB that you will try to uphold. And KVZ's is just slightly faster, slightly, moving into the Mirror Temple with new mechanics. A bunch of them have already passed. You see these red bubbles. Instead of green, you can see they move infinitely instead. Ooh, KVZ dies on this skip here. There we go, very nice. Where you can actually skip having to grab one of these red bubbles. 2 rooms to the left. To get over that gap, instead he uses a reverse extended hyper. Bunch of prefixes, but we know extended, you get your dash back midair, and reverse is you can actually dash left and then jump right and still get the momentum from the hyper, which is really nice for these tight spaces. Oh, takes a death there in this room. Can be quite annoying. And there's also these dash blocks here, which will move up along their track when you dash. So they can be quite annoying to manipulate sometimes, but you can also gain great momentum from them, as in Celeste, everything that can move will and can transfer its momentum to you, just as in the actual world. So that's really nice to see. Here a very long bubble room gets the cycle skips there, very nice. Of those spikes. Moving spikes actually, and I think that's the last we'll see of those, because other sections with these spikes are usually side content I will skip. Looks like KVZ also has some issues with his stream, but he seems to be moving just fine, so it's only stream related. And he is now a seeker. These little buddies that just want to try to hug you, but in fact kind of eat your face away. Not so great. And they will home in on your X and Y position, so they're very precise with their aim, and thus for some players it might look random how they move, but it's not random at all. It's completely based on your position. See Catnip now in the first of a few snowball rooms in Cliff Face, still keeping a good pace compared to KVZ here. Catnip, one of the players in this tournament who has actually improved her PB by a really large margin compared to when the tournament began. I think her PB was around a 55, 56, and it's now a 46. So really good progress there, which shows you what kind of motivation this tournament can give, and of course it forces you to do runs, which is really nice to just get better at Celeste, which is something we all want to see. Meanwhile, KVZ moving through this Seeker section here, where you can get destroyed, little Seeker. Where you can manipulate the Seeker into moving through these coins that you need to collect to open the door for the next room. And they actually activate those, so you can manipulate them a little bit and make it through just that slightly bit faster. Plus it looks really satisfying. Coming up, Surge Skip. First try, easy every time. He just casually skipped around 2 to 3 minutes there. 2 to 3 minutes of collecting coins in branching paths in like a maze-like structure. That it's just too slow for our taste, so we skip it all with a nice reverse extended jump dash. And if there's one skip you will want to learn if you want to play Celeste, that's the one. All the other skips are not mandatory, but in the end they are faster. But you know, when you're starting out, that is not a concern yet. And now, since KVZ is going so fast, new stuff is happening all the time. We have here Theo in a nice crystal. We have to kind of move him around. And the main thing is that in this escort-like mission, he kind of disables your dash when you're holding him with the grab button. So what you see KVZ do here is just throws Theo and then hyper dash into him and pick him up midair. And that actually does not lose you momentum, so you can just keep flying. Especially you see it in this room, where you combine this with a dash block, gaining some nice momentum and making it look cool at the same time. Because of course, the holy priority of speedrunning is speed first and then swag. And if you can combine them, that's even better. And he is actually flying through this Theo section already in the final room, where there are these kind of shockwaves that push you back, but you can dash through them, as you'll see him do here. Gets the 2 cycle, very nice. Or that's a, no, that's a 1 cycle. Because the eye will send out shockwaves of 2 at a time, with some dead time in between. So I'd like to call 2 waves 1 cycle in this case. Very nicely done. See Catnip now moving into the mirror here. Gonna become a Seeker, will then enter Unraveling and enjoy some Seeker action, and I will try to look at that since I've kind of missed it in my previous part when KVZ went through it. KVZ in 6th chapter, Reflection. The feather mechanic was already on your screen. I don't think there's much to be explained about that, but we have these Kevin blocks, which if they have blue sides, you can dash into them and then they will move in that direction until they hit a wall. So they keep moving, go through spikes, destroy any destroyable objects on the way. And they will be a common theme in this chapter, together with bumpers, which we will see in just a few screens. One thing to be said about these feathers is that they are omnidirectional. And since you get slowed down if you turn too much, it's actually slightly faster. Ooh, misses the Kevin manipulation there. It's actually slightly faster to use analog stick compared to keyboard or D-pad here, since you don't have as much turn accuracy with the arrow keys in order to not get slowed down. But so it makes some corners tighter if you're on keyboard. However, time-wise, it doesn't save you as much. It just makes it slightly harder to do. However, the main consensus is that in all other cases, the D-pad is just easier to use, since you only have 8 directions to dash in anyway. And here are the bumpers. They are literally pinball bumpers, and they will bump you out of the way in the direction that you came from and replenish your dash. And there's some speed tech that you can do with these bumpers. That is, if you hold away, if you have away pressed, I should say, on the frame you hit the bumper, you actually get a speed boost when you fly away. So it doesn't have to be a frame perfect press. You can just hold that direction before you hit the bumper, but you still got to move into the bumper, of course. So a way to do that would be to dash into the bumper, and then you can hold that direction. Something which you will see in this screen here. With that, you can skip this second bumper with this what you call a bumper boost. Very nice. Now Catnip, insert skip. I said it would cover that Seeker section a bit more. Well, turns out I was wrong, as things happen so fast in this game. It is sometimes hard to keep track of everything. See Catnip struggling a bit with search skip here. But that doesn't really matter since, well, of course it matters since you lose time, but it's still a time gain over like a net time game, since, you know, unless you sit here for 3 minutes doing this, it will always be better to keep trying than to give up and go collect the keys instead. Always nice, developer intended shortcuts. Can be punishing though, as there's no checkpoints when you take these shortcuts. When the normal way, quote unquote normal way, does have checkpoints in that room since it's quite long. And coming up to one of the more fancier but useful skips in this run is the Badline boost, as we like to call it, which features getting 2 momentum boosts from this Kevin here by hypering and bunny hopping, as you see here. Flying through and just starting the fight immediately. So in Chapter 2, Badline chased us. In Chapter 6, we're going to be chasing her, smack her a bit as she tries to defend herself. There's a few ways she defends herself. We have sets of 1 fireball at a time. She could do 2 sets of 2 fireballs, and has a laser attack that will need charging before it's fired. And in each room, the kind of attack Badline will use is predetermined. So every room is always has the same attack pattern. So as you can see here, it will be 5 sets of 2 fireballs. However, she just gets hit before she can even launch the 4th set, because KVZ is just that fast. And of course, this is also where people like this to say "Hey ya," because the music. Ooh, very nice strat there. That was fast. Because you can see the "Hey ya's" and it gives the runner some energy. And as we know, that's very important, because otherwise they might just die. And we don't want that. We don't want people to go die on us here, especially not when I'm commentating, because, you know, I don't want to jinx it, but here we go. I have not seen a commentator's curse yet, and KVZ is doing really well, so let's hope I just did not jinx it and he will continue to play very well. Catnip in the final room of, well, penultimate room of the Theo section, the final room with Seekers, where you can actually die. Because in the room after this, there's no way of actually dying. You just get slowed down, but you can die. However, in this room, you obviously can with these Seekers, being annoying. Cavalry, looks like. Yep, Catnap's now in the final room, and KVZ is in the second part of the fight, where Badline becomes just extra triggered, a little bit hot pocket here. And she will use some telekinesis to move around blocks around her as sort of a last stand. If we talk about last stands, why is that even a thing? Why aren't bosses just going all out from minute 0? I think they have a better chance of, you know, winning, but that might just be me. Final room here of the fight, a very long one at that. So especially the deaths at the end are extra costly. Well, and there you have it. The first curse has been made. KVZ dying at the very end, having to redo the entire room, losing at least 20 seconds. It had to happen. I mean, I'm talking the entire time. It's bound to happen at least once, right? But he's done with the fight now. And he leveled up. KVZ is now level 2, with the 2 meaning 2 dashes. And yeah, my job is the curse, well, not curse as in the words, but caster's curse, of course. So KVZ has dyed his hair pink, because he feels like it. Why not? And now he suddenly has 2 dashes. And if you thought we could do cool stuff with 1 dash, oh boy. Just wait until we have 2. As we move into the final chapter, as everything has gone by pretty quickly, if I do say so myself. The time just tends to fly with Celeste. He needs to wait first, yep, to get his dash back to make it. So Summit, the final chapter in this run, kind of a combination of all the things you've learned throughout, and thus is kind of a culmination of everything you've seen before. But with some really cool music to inspire you to keep going and to make it to the top of this mountain after all. So we started with Reflection, chapter 6, since that's technically the bottom, and then we go from 1 to 5 in the chapter, so you will see all the mechanics we've discussed previously. Well, and that zipper, but zippers are traffic blocks, zippers. They're quite easy to grasp, I think. And after the final section, which is the Mirror Temple section, we will be at the actual start of the summit, which will be the 3000 meter. And then the final climb has truly begun. Well, the climb has begun right here, of course, but then it's a new climb, because we fell all the way down. Now have to retrace our steps. And after that you are back where you were previously, and now it's time to progress. Some nice block manipulation there, moving into 1000. Probably one of the most satisfying and cool parts to see, because the dream blocks are back even though we're awake. Don't question me on that, I don't know why. But one thing you can actually do out of dream blocks is jump out of them. which gives you a good speed boost. Oh, he missed the coin there. That's awkward. Okay, he makes it. Good. But you can also hyper dash out of Dream Blocks. It's quite a tight window to press dash and jump, but you can actually do it, as KVZ did it there. And that makes this section even cooler. But yeah, indeed, the music is really motivational as it edges you on to keep going, keep pushing. You're going underneath, very slick, into the final room where there are these Badline bubbles, which will throw you up and give you a dash back. And you can actually dash whenever you want out of that. And in the chapter 4 section, she will actually throw you too high. So if you dash early, you save some time there by not having to fall down to the right height. And now this is known as the hardest section in the game. Pretty sure. The cycles are back. There's a bunch of long rooms, and especially if you want to be fast, there's a lot of cycle skips you can do here that save you a little bit of time but are very punishing. Coming up to one of the coolest rooms in the game. So fast. Feels good. And Catnip is now starting the Badline fight. So it's like around 28 minutes when starting the fight. Seeing as I usually see Reflection as a midway point. She's keeping pace quite well. But of course KVZ, as you can see, is a few leagues ahead of her. She's already into the 2K section, which is the Golden Ridge part. So the wind is back, snowballs are back. All the good stuff. Oh, no, I actually forgot to mention the clouds, but I think those make a lot of sense when you see them in action. They're just trampolines in cloud form or something like that. Ooh. Yeah, I think the start of Reflection is kind of a midway point in the run, time-wise. Because you runs generally, like the real fast runners, of course, tend to finish in under 36 minutes or even faster. And around 18 minutes you're in Reflection. So yeah, Summit is around 1/3 of the entire run in length. So it's really necessary, necessary that you are proficient at Summit, since it is the very end of a run. So nerfs might come into play, and it's just that long compared to the other chapters. This is kind of funny because Summit is 1/3 of the run, and the final part of Summit, 3000, is 1/3 of Summit in time. So effectively 1/9 of the run, or 1/10, depending on your math. And KVZ now moving into the final subsection before the real Summit begins, which is the Mirror Temple section. And Catnip now starting the final phase, or the second phase I should say, of the Badline fight. The Mirror Temple section of Summit is one of the more technical ones, and it does, when executed properly, it looks really cool. With a nice key skip here, where you do 2 neutral jumps off of a corner, off of 2 corners to skip that entire section of having to go down and grabbing a bubble. Sometimes that corner is already called a spike jump, since it's actually a corner where a spike is like on the wall there. However, the way spikes work is that if you go away from them, you do not die, and thus it's more like a wall jump off the wall behind the spike without you moving into the spike, so you don't get hit by it. KVZ opting to for door skip there, loses a second. However, it's a lot safer. But everyone likes to see door skip, even though it's such a high risk, low reward skip, where you can actually go underneath those doors. But he opts to go safer. So it might be that he's on PB pace, actually, if he does door skip. And now into 3000, the final part of the run, where it's just a bunch of platforming and only a select few of the mechanics of previous chapters. Runners take around 3 to 4 minutes to complete this, with the fast ones doing it under 3 minutes. And seeing as his PB is a 33.59, it will be quite tough for him to match this and get a PB here, but that does not mean his time will be bad whatsoever. And Catnip now moving into Summit has 14 minutes, roughly speaking, to PB. And 40 minutes to complete Summit is a very doable estimate or goal, as it were, since you know the world record is under 9 minutes, which is just insane. But runners who are around 40 minutes in game time finish Summit at a minute or 11. So 14 is definitely doable. Yep, those are the numbers I did use. A 33.59 for KVZ and 46.18 for Catnip. So PBing here for KVZ will be hard. And well, I actually think it's not even possible anymore. Just even if you're a TAS, I don't think you can PB from this position. So that's unfortunate to see, but that his time will be really good still. Now in this updraft section where gravity is kind of lower, effectively making you really floaty. And ooh. Takes a death there on flag 14. And these are the deadly two, as I'd like to call. 14 and 13 are both long flags due to the wind and just because they're long of their own. So having a death at the very end of the flag, which 13 is kind of renowned for, is very punishing as far as time losses are concerned. So with just one death, KVZ got through just fine. And is now on to flag 10 already. Does not skip it. Some people might skip that flag, but safety is always a good thing to have. And he will move into the final updraft section very shortly. See Catnip now moving on to 1000 meters. Not sure if we will see Dream Block Hypers, as those are kind of hard to do and they don't save as much time, especially not if you're not used to them. Since of course if you fail that hyper, you just diagonal dash into the abyss and die. KVZ now in the final section, because of course these flags are checkpoints, so there's no more screen transitions from here. It's just one long room to the finish with a bunch of checkpoints in between. Now in checkpoint 3, which is another long one, and 2 is the last real challenge, with 1 being a cooldown. So let me see no deaths on 2, please. Very nice. And it looks like he will finish with a 10 flat summit IL time and around a 35 total in-game time, which is very impressive. There's only a select few of runners able to pull off that feat, and KVZ is one of them. So congratulations for KVZ on winning this race against Catnip. He will now move to a 5-1, all but securing his second place finish in this group. And if possible, we will be having a word with him shortly to talk about his thoughts on that race and the run on overall. As since it's a minute of PB, he might have some complaints himself that we might have missed. We see now Catnip in the first of 2 long rooms in 1500. Clears it first try, no problem whatsoever. Oh, but takes a death in a short room right after. That's usually, you know, that's how some things might go there. Does go for the ultra strat here. Does not do the complete cycle skip, which is still fine, still really fast. But yes, we do have a very neutral flavored pie, a pie flavored pie, one might even say, because we only collect 2 strawberries, or sometimes even just 1 or 0, depending on if you die with the berry or if you actually collect it. So they're kind of disappointed about the pie, but it's not about the pie, it's about the time. Look how fast we made that pie. Only 35 minutes. That's a quickly baked pie. Anyway, Catnip in 2000 now, with 10 minutes left at PB. Well, a little less than 10 minutes. Still on a good pace, in my opinion. I'm not really sure what her splits are and how ahead or behind she is in this point, but it looks really solid. Has some problems with this room, especially getting this extended hyper. And it looks like we will not have an interview with KVZ. That is completely fine. It's obviously on the runner's choice. And Catnip kind of struggling with this strat here. Gets it after a few tries. And would rather just do the strat than take a backup, which is a way of practicing, of course. Since if you go to backups too many times, you'll never practice the real strat. So I like that decision there. Bobs the snowball, since you can actually jump on them and get your dash back. Like Oshiro. But so it's basically snowballs can be seen as Oshiros that come from the right. Is she playing on analog? I'm not sure. What is that strat? I've not seen that. There's an auto scroller skip here, of course, you can do. But it opts to take the safety. And last time I thought I saw keyboard keys as inputs. So it might be that she's on keyboard, but I'm not sure what kind of control scheme she's using. Apart from the feathers, it comes down to personal preference. So you see a bunch of people using controllers or keyboards, it doesn't really make a difference. Although, if not on keyboard, the most popular option seems to be a DS4, but that is just personal, like what do you call that? Anecdotal evidence, so it could very well not be true. Now moving into the final section of 2000. This is where it meant you are thrown higher than you want to be to dash. So if you dash early, you will break that momentum and just keep going, as you can see right here. Saves a bit of time compared to waiting to fall back down. Yeah, I've heard people complain about the Xbox One D-pad, which is why I have the opinion that DS4 is better as far as D-pads are concerned. Or controllers for Celeste, but that's oh, Axel gets a corner boost there. That was sneaky. But that's a discussion for another day as we move into 2500. PBing is slowly getting out of sight, but that's just me saying that since a 4-minute 3000 is still really good and can be hard to do. Coming up to key skip here. Gets it first try, no problem whatsoever. That did almost not look like a corner boost since she didn't jump off the corner. She just kind of flew over the corner, which is something you do in the Oshiro section in chapter 3 as well. I'm not sure if we call that a corner boost. And do we get door skip? Ooh, misses door skip here. Oh, goes for a diagonal door skip. Misses the second one though. Loses a bunch of time here. Is the safety coming out? It is. And I do not blame her whatsoever. Oh, only opens the first door. Half door skip. So that saves 4.5 years instead of 9? Or what? What's the consensus? I don't know my meme here. Half of the door skip. Only one door is skipped in this moment. Oh, another misinput on the dash direction there. It seems to be looking like either some quote-unquote fat fingering or analog input, as those people tend to struggle with misinputting dash directions. But it could very well be different, of course. until 3000. And Catnip is still on very good PB pace here, as a little over 4 minutes. No, actually 3.5 minutes to PB, which will be a tough ordeal if your PB is around 46. So let's give her some energy by counting down the flags to the top, starting from 30, but we're already at 28. So let's start from flag 28 and count down to 1 as we give Catnip our energy to finish this run on a PB. Ooh, that's a rough death on 26 here. In this downdraft can be quite annoying to get used to. Nice, makes it through onto 23. Misinputs the dash here, but still on a solid pace. That 3.5 minutes is counting in a few deaths, so there's definitely room. But as I mentioned when KVZ was there, the big two, or the deadly two, the two of death, the two flags of sorrow almost, are still yet to be done. They can maybe ruin this potential PB. Let's hope that will not happen here. Ooh, goes for a strat to have both dashes remaining after the crystal, but barely misses the spike here, the corner here. Gets it second try. Very nice. I'm not sure by how much that is faster, but it looks cool, that's for sure. And here they are, flag 14. Some very strict stamina management needed here to make it. Very well done. Gets the ever so slightly faster clips there by going full horizontal instead of diagonal. So that's a very tight window to hit. But instead it will be the classic die on 12 instead of 13. Which can be still quite annoying. Ooh, and I might have cursed that death. That was on me. You can expect a written apology later if you want. Does not skip 10. Very understandable. And almost everyone skips flag 8 here, since people tend to forget flag 8 is a thing sometimes. Now on flag 6, final updraft section before we are in the final room of the run. Dies on flag 5, but that doesn't matter since that's an automatic checkpoint due to screen transition. But takes another death, has 1 minute remaining to PB here. And these last few flags might take longer than people expect. Can take up to a solid minute to complete. So it will be really tight. And deaths are not allowed anymore. Makes it. Flag 2 coming up. This is still very possible. That is, if you want to die on flag 2, that's the place where you would most likely want it to happen. Not losing a bunch of time here. And I still believe, and I see the chat giving energy. I see it. We see flag 1. There's just a few seconds left for this PB, but it's so close. I want to see the PB. Everyone wants to see a PB. We better believe it. I see a red timer. Is that the sign of not a PB? 46:04 will be the final time of catnip. Which, if we're going off speedrun.com timer, is a PB. However, since I see a red life split timer, might just be an unconfirmed PB that she lost against and barely did not PB in this run. either way, it's a great sign of consistency from Catnip here. Still getting so close to her PB and being under her SRC PB, showing the consistency. And yeah, there we go. 45:30 was her recently obtained PB, so no PB today, but still a very solid time overall. So I think, I'm not sure if we have time for an interview. So far, Catnip has not done interviews as far as I'm aware, which is, no problem with that. And that will mean we will be going to the next race very shortly in around 10 to 15 minutes. We will have a race on Speed Gaming 3, where I will be commentating again between Musesar and Tedemos. And at the same time, on Speed Gaming 4, we will have a race between Zinpars and GD Tog, commentated by Gamzy Dreamer. So you might just multi-twitch it up, watch both streams at the same time. I highly recommend you do, because there will be a bunch of more Celeste. And after that, we will have another race at 5 p.m. EDT and one at 10 p.m. EDT. And that will conclude the races for this Monday. So not as busy as last weekend, but of course it's a Monday, slightly different schedule, but still a bunch of Celeste in your future. So be sure to look out for more action of this amazing Any% Celeste tournament. So once again, congrats to KVZ for winning the race, and congrats to Catnip as well for a very solid time. And I think that, yes, the runners and their Twitches have already been shouted out in the chat. Very nice. And I'm Blue Eye. I also have participated in this tournament, of course. But right now, this was my commentary for this race. And I thank you all for watching. And we'll see you on Speed Gaming 3 for our next race coming up very shortly.